The world were truly happy, living as one.
Normally, at hotels and resorts in Michigan, there is a visible workforce of Hispanic immigrants. But in many hotels nowadays, few can be seen anywhere. As well, the U.S. auto industry, based in Detroit, Michigan, experiencing a shortage of immigrant workers. That's because the U.S. government in June 2020 temporarily suspended new work visas and stopped hundreds of thousands of foreign immigrants from finding employment in the United States, part of a major policy to limit the entry of immigrants into the country, for jobs such as computer programmers and other skilled workers under the H-1B visa, in addition to seasonal workers in the hospitality industry. Also, U.S. companies with global operations and international companies with U.S. branches are blocked from transferring foreign executives and other employees to the United States. The government saying its decision to suspend visas to foreigners an effort to protect U.S. citizens during massive layoffs during the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic.
By pausing immigration, we'll help put unemployed Americans first in line for jobs as America reopens. It would be wrong and unjust for Americans laid off by the virus to be replaced with new immigrant labor flown in from abroad. We must first take care of the American worker, take care of the American worker.
The Trump administration claims that more than 17 million U.S. jobs were lost in restaurant and hotel industries in which employers are seeking to fill worker positions tied to H-2B non-immigrant visas, and that 20 million U.S. workers have lost their jobs in science, technology, and engineering industries to immigrants with H-1B and L visa workers to fill these positions. But critics of Trump's decision to suspend immigrant visas in 2020 say it's what may have contributed to him losing his re-election bid, particularly in states so reliant on immigrants like in Michigan. Detroit, for example, well known for its murals honoring immigrants across the city, like here in Mexican Town.
It probably represents the prosperity of Detroit.
Yeah.
Steve Tabachman is the founding director of Global Detroit, a nonprofit community development organization that advocates for economic growth through immigrant inclusion.
Metro Detroit is home to 2/3 of the state's immigrants, a little over 425,000 immigrants in our region. It's a rapidly growing immigrant population, both here in the city of Detroit, as well as in the Southeast Michigan region, Metro region, and across the state of Michigan. And we know that as for the last 4 years, whenever the president was in trouble, whether it's about the economy, whether it's about members of his administration being indicted, we have seen the president go to immigration as a way to energize his base, who have a false notion, not borne out by economic research at all, that their economic future has been hurt by immigration.
Tabachman says President Trump underestimated the contribution immigrants make to the U.S. economy when he made his decision to temporarily stop issuing them visas. Michigan's economy, he says, is more reliant than most U.S. states on an immigrant workforce.
We are the automotive design capital of the world. We have over 1,000 foreign-owned companies that are in Oakland County alone, which is our suburban county where automotive design facilities are often located. They're actually throughout the whole region, but these are what we call Tier 1 automotive suppliers. These supply the parts that go into the plant for final automotive assembly. And these companies are from all over. They're from Spain, they're from Germany, they're from Asia, they're from Mexico, they're from Brazil. And they bring their leaders to set up their North American headquarters. We have more North American headquarters for the automotive manufacturing industry in Metro Detroit than anywhere else in North America. And they rely on these visas, on the L visas, on the H-1B visas, to bring their global staff to our community. Without this, we will not be able to recruit new companies. So these are the most competitive visas that companies apply for, and those positions are now foreclosed from people overseas. Business leaders are obviously dealing with a lot in the midst of this pandemic, and there are some very existential questions, meaning whether it's GM or Ford, they're trying to survive.
Tabachman says it remains unclear if U.S. workers have found more jobs following the Trump administration's suspension of 500,000 worker visas, because the administration has not released information that attempts to quantify the results of its policy. Several thousand immigrants in Michigan whose visas were suspended have returned home. Many of those who remain have been reluctant to speak on camera about their immigration status.
We have thousands of Latinos immigrants here in Detroit.
Cindy Gamboa works with a nonprofit assisting Hispanic immigrants here called the Detroit Hispanic Development Corporation, or DHDC. Gamboa says the visa suspensions have a dire effect on immigrant families now without jobs here in Michigan, particularly on the children born here in the United States to immigrants whose parents have been forced to return to their countries of origin. Gamboa says she herself years ago experienced the challenging U.S. immigration process in the United States firsthand when her husband was sent back to Mexico after coming to the U.S. without legal documentation as a child.
He came here to send money back home to give his brothers and sisters a better shot at life. You don't really understand the struggles of immigrant families until you actually go through them. Going through an immigration process really had a humbling effect on me. I felt the devastation firsthand by seeing the pain in the faces of my children when their father was sent back to Mexico. It was a crippling experience where I all of a sudden was a married single mother raising two children, and my husband did nothing wrong. He had no criminal record. He's paid his taxes every year. We bought our home. I mean, everything was fine. And because we wanted to go through the legal way of adjusting his status, he had to go to Mexico. What we thought was going to be 10 months actually turned out to be 3.5 years. ICE is patrolling our neighborhoods, our schools. They're hunting. They are in our neighborhood actually hunting our community members, where people are afraid to leave their house, to go to work, to take their children to school, to go pick up a prescription from the pharmacy. And there's other policies that are actually corroborating with these sentiments.
Human rights groups estimate as many as 10,000 immigrants, the majority of them from Mexico and Central America, have lost their lives attempting to cross the southern border of the United States over the last 25 years, dying in the desert or drowning in the Rio Grande.
So this here is our altar that we put up a couple years ago. We recognize and we honor all of the families that we have lost at the southern border, the Mexico and U.S. border. All of these individuals, children and adults, were individuals that were coming to the U.S. for a better life and tragically lost their life along the way, either at the border on the intent to cross, say in El Rio Grande, or in a detention center because of all of the harsh policies that have been happening in the past couple years.
Steve Tabachman says the Trump administration has also been criticized for at one point announcing that it would cancel international student visas and force hundreds of thousands of them to return home, the vast majority of international students from China.
We also had an announcement, very important to China, that international students who were not having in-person classes were going to be deported. Thankfully, a number of universities, including Harvard and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, top universities around the country, filed lawsuit, and within a week, that policy was repealed. But it showed the Trump administration's really closing doors because of the coronavirus, because of the economic situation that we've been facing in ways that are actually going to hurt our economy.
Tabachman says he and his family identify with immigration because his grandfather, Morris Tabachman, immigrated to Detroit from Poland almost a century ago.
Immigrants have come here for the same reason my grandparents came here, for freedom and opportunity. And my family very much identified with America as a nation of immigrants, as a nation of opportunity, with these great foundational principles from the Constitution.